Hello everyone, welcome to my video. In this lecture, we're going to talk about object storage, data lakes, and lake houses. So these are the current technologies that are commonly used when you are dealing with big data, especially nowadays. So let's go over these key concepts. So the first one is the object storage. So typically there are like three types of storage. The block storage. So this one is where data is stored in blocks uh, within sectors. So typically, the disk in your laptop, if you have a solid state disk, will use block storage, right? Also, with the HDFS from Hadoop, it will split data in blocks. So it's a common storage. We also have file storage, which is more like convenient for users. So where you have a hierarchy, with some folders, subfolders, and the files. So it's nice for the users, but it's not ideal for analytics, like and all the analysis that you want to do in your data. So what you will find nowadays, especially in cloud services, is what we call object storage. So here, data is stored as discrete objects, and typically these objects will have three pieces of information. So you have the data, of course, the metadata, which is the information about that piece of data, and there is a unique ID. So these are the three elements that we will have in the object storage. So nowadays, when you face big data, most likely you will store your data using one of the cloud services, AWS, Azure, or even Google services. There are other alternatives, but of course, these are the three biggest companies in the industry. So they have object storage. So in AWS, you will find S3. That's the name of the storage. In Azure, we have using class. There is the Azure Blob Storage. And of course, in Google, there is also a Google Cloud Storage. And all of them are object storage. So every time you save some data, it will be saved as stored as an object with these three elements. Now, the next part of the object storage in these cloud services is that it's considered serverless. That means that you don't have to, like consider the server configuration. You just interact with the objects using an API. So that will be enough to connect to the data and to start doing your analysis. The next thing about these services is like you can scale as much as you want. And right now, typically the cost will be like around $20 to $30 per terabyte. That's during a month per month. Of course, that changes, but yeah, at the moment that will be like the price between $20 to $30 per terabyte during a month. That's just for the storage. Of course, there are other services. So every time, for example, you interact with the data, so if there is a flow, that they will charge you more, right? Depending on the number of interactions. If you're doing some queries, that of course will generate some charges. Okay, so let's see the evolution of data storage. So we have talked about the traditional data warehouse or traditional databases. So this is mainly for structured data. This it's very reliable and works good, especially when for business when you're dealing with transactions, ERPs, CRMs. So in general, like industries across different industries, you will find very solid traditional data warehouses, and they work. I mean, this is very like solid technology. However, they are more designed for structured data, and when you're dealing with non-structured data, and you have images, you have information about logs or information about sensor documents, then of course they are not that strong for that type of data. So that's why we had the transition to data lakes. So the object storage that we just mentioned, they are considered data lakes. So here, uh, especially in the cloud services, the data lakes will refer to the storage where you can put anything. You can have here structured data, semi-structured data, or unstructured data. So it's mainly like you will have raw files here. So it's good, for in terms of flexibility. If you want to scale it, like increase the capacity. So it's perfect. It's cheap. In general, it's considered cheap. Now, the main limitation of these data lakes, it's in it lacks built-in governance. So sometimes there might be some problems with the data, some duplications, especially if you don't have, if you don't have a proper administration or a proper management of the data lake. That's why now, like in the last 5 years, this term, it's getting more popularity, lake houses. So lake houses, it's the combination of like data warehouse and data lakes. It takes like the the warehouse part and the lake part, and now we talk about lake houses. So lake houses is not different than data lakes. It's just like an extra layer. It's adding a layer to data lakes. But the idea of the lake house is to make it more formal, make it more robust. It's like, okay, data lakes are nice. You can store, like anything. It's relatively cheap, but at the same time, for companies, when you want to do some analytics, some, machine learning in your data, so you need to be rigorous. So that's why we create this additional layer. So let me show it to you how it looks visually. So this is the traditional data warehouse, so mainly for structured data, right? So here, of course, you can do your business intelligence, your reports, some analytics, machine learning. The data lake. So this is a lake where you have, raw data. You have a mix of data here, anything, structured, semi-structured, unstructured, and then you have, pipelines to process that data. But again, the problem here is like there is like a data governance, so there might be some issues with the data, like lack of consistency in some cases. So that's why we talk about lakehouse right now. So it's adding here an additional layer on top of the data lake. So in the data lake you have raw data, but now with the lakehouse here you have like processed data that can be used for your, different analysis, for your analytics reports, if you want to train some models, identify patterns, and all the things that you can do. So this is like an evolution, if you want to see it. So the term lakehouse was created like in 2020 by Databricks. Even though the ideas were already in the industry, they coined the term lakehouse. Okay, so in the data lake architecture, this is how it looks. Again, you have multiple types of data. Typically, the services, as I mentioned before, in AWS we have S3. In Azure, we will have the blob storage, right, or some data lakes, and Google Cloud Storage also. It's similar. So that's the storage layer. And the nice thing about the data lake architecture is like it decouples the storage and the processing. So this is more for the storage component. But now, when you want to start, like analyzing the data, using that data, consuming the data, then of course you can use different processing engines depending on your needs. But here, for sure, you will find Spark. Remember Spark from previous weeks? So it's very useful when you want to perform analytics in this, infrastructure. So it's common to see Spark here, like for a simple exploratory data analysis or to identify patterns. For sure, you will see Spark. No, MLib. Here is Spark ML. Remember that MLlib, it's kind of like deprecated. You can use it still, but it's under maintenance. It's not it's not the standard right now. Spark ML is the one that you will use for sure for machine learning. Okay, in the case of the lakehouse paradigm, which again is not different than the data lake, it's just an additional layer. So it takes like the best thing of the two worlds. So for in the case of the data lake, it's good the scalability and flexibility, right? That's the nice part. But from the data warehouses, it will take like all the schema governance that help you to make better reporting, to make better models. So in data lake, in the lakehouse paradigm, you will find like very popular architectures such as like Delta Lake, the Iceberg, and Huri. These three are quite popular, especially the Delta Lake, which is maintained by Databricks. So in conclusion, if you compare what like we have covered in our course in previous weeks, so everything was more like local or on premise, like to create a system distributed with multiple nodes. So that's kind of like part of the past. You still might find some of these infrastructures, but it's not common that nowadays a company is going to start like a cluster with multiple machines. It's not common. So most likely what you will face is that you will require an object storage, in one of the cloud services, and you will access the data using an API. This is like the common structure nowadays, especially for big data. And of course, data lakes, they are quite popular, and they decouple the storage from the processing part. And now it's getting more popularity. The lake house, which is an additional layer to the data lakes. Remember, in the data lake we have the raw data, while the lake house, it's gonna help you to give like data governance, to manage the data in a more like let's say in a more responsible way. Okay, so that's everything for this lecture. I'll see you in the next video.